I'm half Argentinian and half Brazilian. I love my heritage. I love our soccer, our traditions, the meat, the insane landscapes, and the culture. But loving a place means you don't look away when it's rotting from the inside. We have to call out the history, the government, and the deep-seated racism that everybody else in Latin America and the world sees, but we continuously deny. There's a major reason why a vast majority of Latin America and the world don't like us. Argentina is easily one of the most racist countries in the world. We are quite literally the Israel of Latin America. Argentina had one of the quietest but most violent genocides in African and indigenous history. Let's stop lying to ourselves. The white Argentina you see today was engineered. It did not just happen naturally. It was a calculated, state-sponsored project of erasure, built on the same foundations of displacement and violence and erasure as America or Israel. Before Europeans showed up, this land belonged to the Diaguita, the Guarani, the Mapuche, and dozens of other indigenous nations. And in the 18th and 19th centuries, African people were a massive part of our fabric. Enslaved Africans were brought here starting in the 1500s. By the early 1800s, black and mulatto residents made up a third of the population nationwide, and up to 50% in some of the interior provinces. Where did they go? They didn't just vanish into thin air, they were systematically eliminated. During the Wars of Independence and the horrific War of the Triple Alliance, the state used Afro-Argentines as literal cannon fodder. They were pushed to the front lines to absorb bullets and die, decimating the male population. The black women who survived were forced to intermarry just to get by, accelerating the intentional disappearance of black identity. When the yellow fever epidemic hit Buenos Aires in 1871, the white elite packed their bags and fled to the wealthy suburbs. They left the poorest districts where the Afro-Argentine population was concentrated, quarantined, trapped, and left to die in overcrowded tenements. Out of the 14,000 people wiped out in a matter of months, the dead were disproportionately black. Then came the late 1800s, and President Domingo Sarmiento openly pushed blanqueamiento, aka the whitening. The government literally subsidized the migration of over 6 million Europeans, mostly Italians and Spaniards, between the 1860s and 1960s to dilute the surviving black and indigenous populations. At the exact same time, they quite literally erased black and mulatto categories from the national census, reclassifying mixed people as white on paper. If you don't count them, they don't exist. That was the logic. And the obsession with whiteness didn't stop there. After World War II, the government opened its arms to some of the most horrific white supremacists in human history, becoming the primary destination for the Nazi rat lines. People like Adolf Eichmann and Joseph Mengele lived out their lives hiding in plain sight in Argentina. Because of this brutal discrimination, systemic marginalization, and racial erasure, countless Afro-Argentines fled, crossing borders into Uruguay and Brazil just to find a place where black culture had a visible, established footprint and they could breathe without being treated like ghosts or criminals. We see the legacy of this history every single day. We see it when our soccer fans and players yell vile, subhuman racist chants at Afro-Brazilian, African, and French players. We see it in the casual, ugly racism Argentinos export when they travel to Mexico, Bolivia, or Brazil. And we see it in our politics. Argentina also voted against a UN resolution declaring the transatlantic slave trade the greatest crime against humanity. Only 3 countries in the entire world voted against it: the US, Israel, and Argentina. The only country in South America to do so. Think about how deeply shameful that is. To every Afro-Latino, black, and indigenous soul watching this video, the pain you carry is not up for debate. For centuries, the system has tried to gaslight you into believing your history didn't happen, or that your ongoing struggle is just laziness or lack of merit. The trauma of having your ancestors systematically erased from the history books while the world praises the European elegance of the country that buried them is a deep psychological wound. Even today, the system demands that you mutilate your identity just to be tolerated. When you're told to straighten your hair or cut off your locks just to look professional or clean for a job, that is the modern corporate ghost of blanqueamiento. It is an absolute disrespect and insult to your humanity to normalize the idea that the features you were born with are inherently unprofessional, sloppy, or lesser than. Your hair, your features, your skin, they are a living map of survival. Cutting them off to make white spaces comfortable should never be celebrated or viewed as a milestone of success. It is a forced compromise born from a racist blueprint that has been running for 500 years, designed to break your spirit and make you blend into a background that never wanted you there in the first place. Your existence is resistance, and your natural self requires zero apology. The root cause is a national myth of exceptionalism built on collective amnesia. Argentina created an identity crisis by convincing itself it is a piece of Europe misplaced in South America, and to maintain that lie, it has to aggressively reject its own geography and history. The root cause is a deep, fragile insecurity that protects itself with arrogance and denial. The government needs to completely overhaul the education system to put indigenous and Afro-Argentine history at the forefront, admitting exactly how the modern state was built. We need to stop hiding behind the excuse of it's just football passion or it's just a joke when people show their overt racism on the world stage. We have to kill the myth of a white Argentina. Until the country faces the ghosts of its past and actively dismantles the colonial mindsets that dictate who belongs and who looks professional, it will remain stuck in a cycle of global embarrassment and internal rot. And then people wonder why no one likes us in Latin America. The truth is already out there. Y'all gotta stop running from it.